Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Devoratorium. My name is Darnay DeVore, and once again, I'm going to be your host. Yes, you read that title correctly. We can defund the police if. Okay? Let me give you some background here. We're hearing this echo a lot throughout the whole country. Defund the police, defund the police. Now, some say all it means is diverting a portion of the budget for the police into some inner city education, social programs, counseling, youth activities, basically things to keep kids off the street and keep them from getting into trouble. Because the less crime we have, the less police will need, right? Yeah, seems like a fair equation. Less crime, less police. So they're talking about diverting that budget, a portion of that budget, to these inner city programs. Others are saying we don't want any police, period. No police anywhere near this town or this city. No one in a badge. We will take care of ourselves. Okay? So we know the job of a police. It says that on the side of their vehicles, to protect and serve. But some of us may be dissatisfied with how they're protecting and serving. So I'll admit I've had my own share of run-ins with the police. Most of them were actually cool. All right. I'll admit most of them were actually cool. Some were okay, but then there was a few that could have gone the other way, and I would not be here today. But by the grace of God, I'm here. Here's the problem with defunding the police. Our cars have locks and alarms. Our homes, some of our homes have locks. We have locks on the doors, no doubt. We've got gates, protective security fences. Some of us even have bars on our windows. Our kids that are playing outside, we want them home by a certain time. What are we protecting our kids from or our families from? Why the bars are on our windows? Why do we push the alarm button on our cars? Is it because we're afraid the cops are coming and they're going to harass and abuse us, break in our home, steal our car? Is that what we're afraid of? No, we're afraid of the criminals. We're afraid of the bad seed out there that's going to involve our kids in things that they should not be involved in. Those are the things that we're afraid of. So people are suggesting maybe we should have a type of counselor, crisis counselors or de-escalation specialists that's going to come out and deal with these situations as they come up. So I want you to picture in your mind a life coach counselor having to sit down with a drug dealer. Now, if you can get a drug dealer to sit down and do a life counseling session with him, you've found the nicest, sweetest drug dealer that you're ever going to meet. I've met some, and they're not going to sit down with you. They're not going to put their guns down and sit down and have a heart-to-heart with anybody. But let's say that happens. Let's just say that happens. Here's the drug dealer sitting across from the crisis counselor or the life coach, and the drug dealer is thinking in his mind, you know something? How much do you make a year? Life coach says, 45, 50,000 a year. And the drug dealer says, I made that last week. I'm going to make 10 times what you make in a year this month. If I work this right. So why should I care about what you have to say to me? Oh, well, the kids are dying and the neighborhood's being torn to pieces and the drugs are polluting and poisoning everybody. Drug dealer, I don't care. I'm getting mine. I got my car, my house, my women. I can do whatever I want to do. Why? How can you teach me how to care enough to give up this $1 million a year job, let's say, $1 million every 6 months, or whatever the drug dealer makes? How are you going to teach me to care enough to give that up and to do what you're doing to make a lot less? $50,000 a year versus $50,000 a month? That's a very difficult sale. Very difficult sale when all he's got to do is grab his gun, get up, walk off, and keep doing what he's been doing all this time. It's a very difficult sale. So I'm going to ask you, in your state of emergency, when that drug dealer is selling to your kids or assaulting your kids because your kids look like the people that shorted him money last month. Maybe they're dressed the same. I don't know. Mistaken identity nonetheless, and he's assaulting them. Or someone's breaking in your house, stealing your car. Who do you call when 911 has been disconnected? Or when the police are so underfunded that in your whole city, you've got maybe 2 cops. One's on leave and the other one's on another emergency. So they're not going to get to you in any amount of time to make a difference in your situation. What do you do? So no crime equals no police, right? A lot of crime, you need a lot of police. A little crime equals a little police. But no crime equals no police. So the question is, how do we get to no crime and keep everyone safe? You got to do both. And I don't mean defund the police first and then you start dealing with crime. I mean the crime must go. No more crime. Then defunding the police. How does that work? The Bible gives us an idea. It's actually not too difficult. Matthew 22:37 through 39. It reads, Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. I want to ask you something. If everyone started doing this, loving God with all their heart, soul, and mind, and loving their neighbor as themselves, I've said this in several other videos of mine, what crime would be committed? The drug dealer can't sell drugs anymore because he loves God. This man is in church every Sunday, loving his God, worshiping his God. There's no way he can love God, but keep poisoning his image in your son, your daughter, my daughter. Won't happen anymore. He's done selling drugs. He doesn't care how little money he makes. He's all about the love of God and loving his neighbor as himself. The guy that wants to steal your car, not going to happen because you're made in God's image, so he loves you. He would never do that because he doesn't want anyone to do that to him. Who's going to break in your place now? Nobody. Nobody, folks. So how do we get to this utopia where everyone believes in God again? Folks are going to church. I never forget, while I was in Texas, the entire town that I was in, Abilene, would go to church. It was like a ghost town during church worship. But as soon as church let out, it was like any other day. Everybody was everywhere. But wow, in a city like that, crime is greatly decreased. Greatly, not eliminated, but greatly decreased. So how do we do this? Here's what we got to do. Put the Bibles back in school. The public schools. Put the Bibles back in. Put the Bibles back in prison. Put the Bibles back in hotels. Put them, make them a part of the public discourse. Bring out your Bible-based movies again and put them on the big screen. Hollywood, acknowledge these things. This is how we get the Bible back in the public conscience. Now, I'm not saying beat someone over the head with the Bible. Don't do that because that's not how Christianity works. But put it in the public conscious. Folks start talking about it again. And the more they talk about it, the more they look into it, the more they start reading it, the more it starts changing their hearts. And then we watch crime decrease. But now you're going to tell me, oh, it's going to offend people. Yeah, there's a lot of people who's going to find this offensive. But let me ask you something. When we got rid of it to begin with, did it make these people feel any less offended? Nah, they just found something else to be offended about. And I'll tell you this. I guarantee you, atheists, people who are typically offended over the Bible, are agnostic, whoever you are, even they would rather live in a nation of faith, a nation full of Christians, and I'll explain how. Let's take your typical atheist. He's out there on his front porch, family in the yard playing, and you see a group of Christians walking down the street. What goes through that atheist's mind? Does he think that he's going to be assaulted, burnt up, blown up? That his kids are going to get kidnapped by this gang of angry Christians? No. Chances are every atheist knows what Christians believe. So knowing what they believe, here are your options. These Christians, if they come to your home, they will cook a meal for you if they didn't bring one for you to begin with. They'll mow your lawn, clean up your yard. They'll give gifts to your children, all free of charge. The worst thing you've got to put up with is them asking if you'd like to attend church with them, asking you if you know Jesus. And you can say, no, I don't want to go to your church. I don't know Jesus and I don't want to know Jesus. They will still do good things for you. They will still give gifts to your kids, do your laundry if you ask them to, cook your meals, do your yard. They'll still do all that stuff. There was no strings attached to begin with. That's just what Christians do. That's who we are. Okay? So that's your biggest threat with a nation of faith. Now, let's take away the nation of faith. Let's make it a secular nation. A group of people are coming down the street and you know they're not Christians. Now, they may just walk by. They may be really nice people and just walk on by. Or they may actually assault you, kidnap your kids, burn down your home. A lot of things can happen. But it's such a wide spectrum now. And here's the key. You don't know what they'll do. You have no idea. You would hope they just walk by, wave, walk by, and they probably will. Great. But you don't know that for sure. With a Christian group, you know for sure they will never do anything to hurt you. The worst thing they're going to do is offend you by inviting you to church. I'll take that offense any day over being assaulted, having my house burned down, whatever it may be. Okay? I know it's an extreme example, but I just want to give you I wanted to give you an example of the two extremes. You see the Christians, you already know what they're about. You see someone who's not a Christian, you have no idea who they are or what they're about or what they intend for you and or your family. So, do you know what kind of police department a nation of faith actually has? Do you know? I kind of do. The handful of part-time police officers within a nation of faith, they actually stay at the police station and pop paper clips at each other all day because they've got nothing to do. Nothing to do. Crime is at an all-time zero because everyone is loving each other as they love themselves and they love God. Loving God means you can love your neighbor even if there are things you don't like about them particularly. But because you love God, you can love your neighbor. So the few cops that part-time cops that are left in a nation of faith, oh my goodness, they end up being volunteer cops because the funding is going elsewhere now because we don't need them because crime has gone down to zero. Now they get calls like helping a cat out of a tree or maybe helping someone unlock their car because they locked their keys in their car. You remember that show, the Andy Griffith Show? Yeah, the lead guy, Andy Taylor. You know he didn't carry a gun, right? Do you know why he didn't carry a gun? He didn't carry a gun because he wasn't going out to shoot anyone, and he lived in a town where he knew the people. They had love for each other. He knew they were not going to shoot him either. The only folks that shot at him were from out of town. They were the strangers. But within the town limits, nobody shot at him, and he didn't want to shoot at anybody. So there were just no guns. He had guns, but he just never used them. Barney Fife wanted that kind of action, but that's not the kind of town that they had. And if that's the kind of town that you want, we're going to have to start with loving each other. They loved each other in that little old town of Mayberry. You can tell I'm a fan of the show. But they loved each other. If we can do that in our country, we can, wow, there'd be no funding for the police. So you say you want to defund the police. How serious are you? Let's eliminate crime first with the gospel. Then we won't need that authority because we have the gospel. Any kind of legal altercation, we can settle it as Christians are supposed to do. We can settle it like gentlemen or like ladies. We can settle it and never even have to use the court system. The jails will be empty. How can you fill up a jail full of people who love God and love their neighbor as themselves? I want you to think about this, folks. All right? You cannot defund the police with so much crime going around. And you who want to defund the police, Let's say you have your own private security. Great, you're taken care of. What about the rest of us? We don't have that. So you want to defund the police? Get rid of crime first. And then we can talk about defunding the police. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Stay tuned for the next one.